What's up, Fed Nation? Rich Maliki back for another Fed Chat. This is Fed Chat episode 7, and today we have another special guest here. And for those of you who do not know, this is Michael Donnelly, and I'm going to let her introduce herself, tell a little bit about who she is, where she's from, what she does. Take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich. Hi, everyone. Michael Donnelly. I am the Executive Director of the Digital Solutions Group arm of Food Service Equipment Reports magazine. Mouthful. I just started at beginning of February, so really excited, new to the industry, so clearly an interesting time to be getting started with everything, but had the pleasure of attending a few events before everything got put on lockdown. And ultimately, what I do in my role is to run the digital marketing agency arm of FER Media. So, you're used to the magazine and the digital channels and what you've seen for the past 24 or 25 years. And this is something new that we started within the past year and a half to really engage and help support the industry as a whole, but specific clients that want to work with us to build out what their digital footprint looks like, what their websites look like, what the content they're producing. And the reason that we really started this, and it got started before I jumped on board, was because we're used to, and you know this from working in digital in the industry, a lot of agencies don't know what's going on the day-to-day. A lot of agencies don't understand when you say MUFAs or NAFM or any of those things. So we're leveraging the kind of collaboration that we have with FER's editorial team to make it easier for, hey, I need this and I'm working on this. How can you help me? And build things for our clients in that way. So that's what I'm up to. That's what it's all about. And I'm excited to be here chatting with you and with the Fed Nation community. I've heard great things.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to have you here, and thank you for taking some time. I know things are a little crazy right now, so I'd love to dive in and talk a little bit about obviously the COVID-19 pandemic that we're all experiencing. You're working from home. So how long have you been working from home, and what's kind of been the transition for you?
Yeah, so interestingly, the FER team, we work from home 100% of the time. Big piece of that is we have people all over Chicagoland area. We have people, across on different coasts, well, specifically on the East Coast. So the biggest challenge is all the shows aren't happening, all of the opportunities where we did get out, all the meetings. So I started in February, as I said, and immediately went out to MUFAs and a couple of the other shows, the NAFM annual meeting. We were just at, which other one? There was a lot.
There's so many.
So I think there was a cadence of working from home and then being out on the streets, being out engaging with customers that is really different because it's a nice balance. I also had been an entrepreneur prior to this for a few years, so I'm used to having a mobile office. I'm used to being on the go. So I think we're a little bit better equipped. And where we have some advantages where I won't be able to speak to, the factory, the manufacturer side of things, is we're producing a magazine. So it's content, it's kind of moving and grooving that way. But it's definitely hard from the personal side of things. Like we're now dealing with, individuals with families are homeschooling, individuals with, parents that they're caring for, individuals, I myself have an autoimmune disease that's respiratory and it's been dormant for a long time, but I have, a different reality of taking care of myself than your average person. So, going outside or how we're interacting, like the mental health is something that we need to focus on and kind of being there and supporting each other through this transition overall. So I think long-winded answer for the fact that there's some things that are similar for companies that might be listening and some things that are different for companies that might be listening of my personal experience and the FER experience overall.
Yeah. I think that's a good point to bring up, actually. Mental health. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I've kind of brushed on, in different conversations with people, and how we're all going to kind of work our way back into some whatever the new norm is going to be, and what our mindset is. Because, for me, I know personally, my mind can really wander badly in like regular, just before this all happened, keeping myself up at night, got the wheels turning constantly. And being here day in and day out now, and I'm really out of my routine terribly, to be honest. And I wonder what it's going to be like for us to really get back into the workforce and um, find our way again. I mean, what do you think about just getting back into routines? How are we going to go about doing that from your perspective?
I think there's something I've been really focused on is not seeing this as a pause or a just transition period, but really seeing this is life right now.
Yeah.
So working and waking up and engaging in each day as if this is what I have and this is what the future looks like. There will be pivots, there will be changes, of course, but approaching the things that I like and the things that I find making myself more productive. And sorry if you hear my dog in the background, he's starting to play. And that's part of the new normal for everyone. Other people have kids, other people have spouses, other people have others kind of jumping around. I have my puppy, so if he jumps up before we're done, I'll make sure he says hi so everyone can
We have to.
So I think what I've been focusing on to keep my mental health is gratitude. I know that's weird because this is something a lot of people are frustrated and angry about, and there's pieces that we can't control, but we can always control our own personal mindset and how we react to the things that are happening in the world. So this excludes a lot of those who have been personally affected and are ill, because I don't have that experience, and I feel, very sad and I feel for those people and, wish health and the best for all of them. But for those of us who are staying home, first it's being grateful for our health, being grateful for our family's health where we have it, being grateful for, the versions of jobs that we have, whether it's, impacted in salary, whether it's impacted in, hey, Lux, he's playing with a toy that makes noise, so I might have to get up and get that. Whether it's but oh yeah, hold on, I'm gonna get it because I want to finish that.
I'll keep everybody preoccupied. So
preoccupied.
Good. All right, there you go.
I was quick. It's this toy, and of course now he wants it and wants to play with it.
Now he wants it.
One toy that he wants to play with, the one that makes noise. So the gratitude was the sentiment I was really focusing on there, and being grateful for the things that we have, whether it's a shift in our job, whether it's the stimulus package, whether it's unemployment. I don't think everything's going great, but I think there are things that we can say like, okay, this is better than what it could be. Yeah. And then finding other things to be grateful for, like this time, instead of seeing it as a burden, seeing it as a gift. So if you get to spend more time with your family, if you get to focus on your fitness goals, if you get to learn how to cook, if you get to do something new and healthy. I mean, for me, it's really been around, we're the digital solutions group. So how are we providing more digital solutions, more virtual engaging opportunities for our clients? What are the things that were on the horizon for FER Media, or that I was kind of excited to potentially get started for Digital Solutions Group, that I can really dig in on and focus now? And then the other one is what this is challenging everybody, especially older generations or non-technically savvy folks, is pushing or busting through, breaking down, annihilating the barrier to technology in virtual world. My 70-year-old uncle is now on Zoom chats or, virtual chats, whatever platform you use. Anybody who's like, oh, I don't have a Facebook, or social media is ridiculous, why would you do that? Or, the website, fine, I have it because I'm supposed to. This is elevating the value for that and showcasing the multiple channels that we can interact on, and how we can, really not be scared of it, but hey, relax.
Shh, it's okay.
But be excited about it as a new opportunity to socialize. Like friends of mine from college or family members, I had 25 of my family members of all different ages on a Zoom happy hour where we went around, said what we were grateful for, did a cheers, and it's people that were like, they've never FaceTimed, have a cell phone that only texts, all that kind of stuff. So it's not crazy to think that we can all engage in different ways and create new opportunities to connect. So I think that's the piece, and like a pretty long answer around what we can do for our mental health, because no one knows what the future is. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, I was just saying those are great points.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it ultimately comes down to, we're all looking for that magic 8 ball. We're all looking for that someone to tell us what the future is, the predictors, and we're clicking all the clickbait online. We're looking at the news. We're all drawn to the TV because we want to hear good news. We want to hear that everything is going to go back and it's going to be the same, but we all know that it's never the same. But there's positives that we can embrace with the new normal, and finding things that we can really focus on now and bring with us to, as the doors start to open again, as we start to figure those things out, like learn about the different elements that we can focus on now.
Yeah, I think that was actually a really great answer, especially for this group, because we're talking FED, right? Food equipment, digital disruptors, trying to get people online. And this might be the blessing in disguise and the positive from all this, because there's so many people that were struggling to get in front of a camera or to just put out even a written word or anything. And I'm seeing so many more people now on LinkedIn and even on Facebook, and people putting content in this group, on this platform, that never really did before. I see people jumping on other talks and podcasts. And, this is, I think, hopefully going to push people to understand that, wow, we have a real opportunity here to talk about what we have going on, help other people while we're doing it, build connections, network. And it might be physical distance, but it's not social distance. So we still get to communicate. And I think for our mental well-beings, this is a great opportunity for us to be able to do stuff.
Yeah, I love that, what you just said. It's not social distance, it's physical distance. And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. And ultimately, I think, especially in this industry, and I know that just from being new here, but in most cases, it's an age barrier, right? And in this industry, there are a lot of, legacies and parents, and a big focus of a lot of my conversations has been around, what does the transition look like? What does the future look like? Well, I think the future is happening a lot quicker than anybody planned and unfolding in front of our eyes. But what different generations that might have been averse to it are seeing is, it's not that big of a burden. It's not that hard. And there are resources out there. What you're doing with Fed Nation, what we're doing with our digital solutions group, what your internal marketing team is doing. When we talk about digital marketing, I always remember people like, oh, well, my niece is on social, so she's going to run this for us. Or I know someone that made a website once. And I know money is not something a lot of people have a ton of right now, but, thinking about and really focusing on how you're spending your dollars and how you're spending your time and what you can do to make sure that within the new normal, you are putting your best face forward. And right now that is your digital face. So, adding your avatar, instead of having your LinkedIn just be a random head, adding your picture, things like seeing each other's faces, what you've created with these conversations, it creates a little bit of, familiarity. It creates a friendliness. It takes away the cold of what a lot of people see digital and virtual as. It infuses it with personality. And I think that's where people are like, oh, LinkedIn is ridiculous. I'm not looking for a job. Well, no, it's about connecting and interacting and talking to people and creating conversation and ultimately learning from each other to build industries and build opportunities as a whole.
Yeah, that's so important. Again, for this group, that's just so important. Because people are finding their way here for a couple of reasons. I know one of the big ones is they love networking with a really diverse group from all over the industry, but they really wanted to learn more about marketing and branding and what that actually is. Yeah. And like you said, so many people think like, oh, LinkedIn, I'm not looking, like I said, I'm not looking for a job. It's so much more than that. It's about, like you said, it's relationship building 101. And if you take away the computer and you put yourself in front of someone in real life, I always use the like a metaphor of like a single guy going to a bar, sitting next to a pretty gal and going, hey, what's your name? You don't just go right in and say, hey, you want to get out of here? Right?
Yeah.
So, you gotta talk to, there's a human being on the other end. So you build a relationship and you talk and say, hey, how are you? I really love your content. I love what you're talking about. I'd love to connect, and you build from there. And that's what's so important today more than ever, because we have so much time and opportunity to dive into LinkedIn. That's one of the most important platforms for our industry.
Absolutely. But even like funny, really personal anecdote, and I'm going to put a plug in here for one of our clients, but you just messaged on Instagram, Salvador, and sent them your YouTube story. And Jim over there is a client of mine, and we're running a campaign called Help Now, Eat Later, where Salvador is sponsoring gift cards for the restaurants, for restaurants. So anybody who wants to, you can go, the links on all their websites to apply. But Jim was really funny. He was like, hey, I just got this from Rich. What do I do? I was like, oh, well, here's some things you can do. Let Rich know that you like his content, like the same way you'd give him, like when you give him a phone call, and let him know about the campaign. See if he wants to share it to his audience. And ultimately, the campaign is good for everyone, giving away gift cards to either individuals and or restaurants that apply. The goal for Salvador, they want to grow their digital presence and give back in a time when others are hurting, when they have the opportunity to kind of pay it forward. So I think the social aspect and what people are looking to engage with is remembering exactly what you just said. There's people behind it. So Jim calls me, he's like, how do I do this? What's going on with this? How do we work through it? And I hope he's okay. I told him I might share it. So I got the approval, but ultimately it was like, hey, I've seen what this guy does. It's pretty cool. And I was like, well, then tell him that. And that's it. Like, remembering you're not always speaking, sometimes with your tweets and posts, you do have to remember that there's the public relations side of things, and you want to be careful and understanding that your content is there. But ultimately, thinking about the context, what would you say to an individual? What would you, engage with them on in a social capacity? And remembering it's called social media because it's supposed to be social.
That's amazing. I had no idea that was even going to connect that way. But that's one of the things I've been doing a lot of with the downtime, is reaching out to manufacturers and reps and dealers and just trying to continue to connect with them and say, hey, I'm here. Go check out my YouTube channel. Love to have you part of it, because I need more of the industry following me. And that's how I'm going to continue to build awareness and build new opportunities. So
absolutely. And I think that's a huge give back right now that we can all do. So people are asking, what can I be doing right now? Go online, follow your clients, follow restaurants that are people that you're looking to engage in, follow dealers, follow manufacturers, follow the different operator groups, follow the associations, follow, subscribe, like, engage, talk to people, because we can't do it the same way we used to. So find ways to step outside of your comfort zone and do it online right now. If you need help, they can talk to you about stuff. They can talk to me about stuff. They can seek just general support in the groups, or there are people that you can hire that can really walk you through the how-tos. I mean, I've created very many simple, like how to like as my page versus how to like as an individual, how to comment this way, which makes more sense. Ultimately kind of thinking, about it as, right now, what can you do? We can talk to each other. So we can't do it, the same way we used to, where we're shaking hands and laughing over a beer, but we can have a beer and we can sit on the computer and you can support people. You can encourage people. It's Carry Out Wednesday. I don't know if this is going to air today or air tomorrow, but there's Takeout Tuesday. Follow the hashtags, Rally for Restaurants, Help Now, Eat Later. Like, there's a lot of companies out there that are looking to put out good content, and we're all kind of inundated by what we see on the news and these scary stories. And it's important to pay attention to that, know what's going on. But also, I was talking to Eric Koenig the other day over at Heritage in Bardstown, and he was like, hey, I like, we have happy stories. I want to share more of those. Like, how do we make sure that people are engaging and really working to share positive things that we're doing with each other? How are we innovating? How are we supporting? And I think that's, something that's going to be really cool that comes out of this, and finding those positive moments in the ways that we can support each other, because, some people are going to get really hurt financially by this. Some people are physically hurt, and the health stuff aside, because I don't think that's something that we can really touch on right now. But there's financial burdens. There's people that don't have incomes right now, or you're losing half of what you thought you were going to make. Well, let's figure out how we can connect with people and support, so that as we're starting to re-engage and kind of build everything back up, it's always peaks and valleys. This isn't the first, but this is the hardest in a long time. And it's probably, the 1918 Spanish flu was the last real big quarantine. And the only people that were alive are now the Instagram stories, like, this guy survived the Spanish flu and this and that. But then there wasn't technology. So I think we're in a point of blessing to still be able to interact. Still, you and I are looking at each other. Like, you're in your living room in New Jersey, I'm in my living room in Chicago, and we're like, hey, how are you? Here's some ideas we can share.
and that's the amazing thing. I mean, we're blessed to live in, like, I would say, the greatest era known to man.
Mm-hmm.
And we have these opportunities, and talking about staying connected and stuff like that. Roger Smelser, I don't know if you know who Roger is. He's one of the owners of United Service Technologies,
Okay.
kind of a mentor of mine and a friend. And he invited me to a virtual happy hour this Friday. So a few of us are going to jump on and have our favorite drink kind of thing and just talk. And I'm thinking that just opened my mind. I'm like, you know what? We should start doing Fed happy hours at some point. Maybe we'll start doing that and make that the new norm, not just for the pandemic thing we have going on, but continue all this stuff. Like these things, you know, that we're doing right now, all these Zoom chats and staying connected on a weekly, daily basis. This doesn't have to end, you know?
Yeah, we're
So,
doing and we'll be doing some interesting stuff with Digital Solutions Group and FER that I'm excited to continue to share with you and everybody here. But from a personal standpoint, my family hangs out a lot. My mom's one of 11 and my dad's one of 5. We're true Southside Chicago. There's like 100 some of us, like a small family party is 30 people. So we started these digital happy hours on Wednesdays. So I'll do one later today. And it's perfect. Who could ever can log on. If you can't, you know, we'll miss you. We'll talk to you later. And people log on at different times. It usually goes, I mean, the last one started at 6 and ended at 10 o'clock at night. I got off for like an hour or two. I worked out, walked my dog, came back. I was cooking dinner. I was like, oh, I don't want to cook dinner alone. Let me log in and see if anyone's still on. I had 4 cousins still on. At one point, my smoke detector went off. I'm like trying to wave it down. I got it on mute. They're laughing at me, but like, things that felt like so disconnected to us in the past, or ways where there was big hurdles to see people, to talk to people. None of this has to end. That's something like a lot of people are like, so what do we do when we can still see each other? I was like, well, we can still have a standing, you know, digital happy hour once a month where everyone can log on, because we have cousins in Arizona, we have cousins in Boston, we have cousins in St. Louis. Like, it's still nice for them to not have to fly in and be able to talk to us, hang out with us. And, you know, it doesn't have to be so crazy to connect with each other in that way. And where, you know, I do want to kind of touch back on the mental health side of things is we are getting bombarded right now by everybody figuring out digital and virtual. So I think there is a point where, you know, you should be hosting things if it makes sense for you, but also make sure you're engaging in them too. Don't feel like everybody needs to go out and start something. I think there's groups that are poised to do that, and there's groups that kind of speak to and speak with the community at large. So don't feel the pressure that everyone has to go out and start a virtual happy hour. Don't feel those pressures. And you don't have to sign up and be a part of everyone. Make sure you are taking the time for yourself. And just because you're at home doesn't mean that you're always available. And that's something that I've worked on from a mental health capacity is, you know, my personal calendar, there's been times, oh, come here, buddy, in my life where I've had like 15 events a week and like 3 on one night. You know, those are exhausting virtually too. You're on, you're chatting, you're engaging. So
focus.
exactly, like making sure you're taking care to say no, and not feeling like everything we're saying right now is like a prescription that you have to go do it. The prescription is engage. The prescription is log on, participate, and where it makes sense, create, but don't feel this huge pressure now all of a sudden that everyone has to be creating. There's things that are already created that you can be a part of first.
Great points again. And I'll tell you, it's interestingly enough, you're saying, you know, being available when I was available. I'm finding myself now with the phone and everything, you know, phones are ringing. I'm doing Fed chats. I'm doing the things around my house now. I'm doing different things. And I have this like compulsion, like in the back of my head going, they know I'm home. They know I gotta answer. They know I'm sending them to voicemail because I'm home. And it's just, you know, I'm like, oh, I've been finding myself, I'll call you back. I'll call you back. And I'll get back to everybody. And I think so. We have to make sure that we are understanding that we're still human. We still have work to do. We still have things we're doing here. Things are a little different, and it's okay to say no. It's okay to say, I'll call you back in 15 minutes or whatever. And continue. And again, continuing to build on community, because that's what this really is about.
Yeah, they know you're home, but you also, that doesn't mean you need to work 24/7. You know, still take a lunch break, still figure out if you want to exercise. You know, traditionally we've been 9 to 5 in the industry in many cases, but if you can't be 9 to 5, just make sure your team knows when to set stuff up, or work on scheduling time blocks. In the morning, we do a sales meeting and a team conversation first thing in the morning. And then usually I do a digital check-in with the team middle of the afternoon. And in between that, I try and reserve some hours for, okay, this is my hour that I answer all my emails. Okay, this is my hour that I innovate and think on new ideas and solutions. This is my hour I do client work and get back to all of the projects that we have in the works. And it's routine, but being okay and giving yourself grace where you have to step in and out of that routine because the world still is coming at us. But, I think my to-do list is crazy long all the time. I'm like, man, supposedly everyone's off and I'm working twice as many hours. So like having a time that you're cutting off at night and realizing that the brain that you use to answer emails versus the brain that you use to come up with a new digital solution, whether that be what you're posting online or whether that be some interactive points on your website or how you're communicating with your team, that's more creative. So like you can't do that in the same thought process. There's got to be like a switch gears here where we're then able to process and breathe and brainstorm and it's okay to whiteboard. It's okay to do that kind of stuff at home.
Absolutely is. And so I also saw that I wanted to talk to you about this, that you are a speaker. You've spoken at different events. So I just started recently speaking, and I'm bringing this up because I noticed that you speak, and people since I started speaking have continually reached out and said, well, how do you do it? How do you get up in front of people and do it? And you seem comfortable. And I tell them I'm dying inside as I do it. I'm dying. Before I get up there, I'm already dead because I've destroyed myself inside of like, what's going to happen? Am I going to stumble over my words? And I can't eat the night before. I could barely sleep. And, I'm not a professional speaker. I've spoken in front of maybe 8 or 9 audiences now, but it does get easier. It really does. That's the old cliche. It gets easier. It does get easier. But I'm wondering for you, speaking in front of people, does it kill you before you get up there? Are you nervous? And where are some places you've spoken?
So funny, right? Like the people who come up to you are like, you look so comfortable. It seems so easy. Like you're on that interview. It was like, oh, just like you're hanging out. So I think I was predisposed to be a speaker based on the fact that in my family, if you're not kind of commanding attention and calling everybody to you at some point, you're never going to be heard. So I'm used to big crowds, just kind of by the lucky fact that I was born into one. But ultimately, yes, nerves will get me. There's times when I come up and my voice will be shaky and you kind of find your spot. But of course, practice makes it easier. That doesn't mean you're not nervous, but I've found a few kind of tricks that I play on myself. I hate prepared speaking. So if I'm supposed to deliver a speech where I have to memorize it or, something of that nature, that puts me at a much more uncomfortable position. Yeah, right? Like, especially if you're someone who's more conversational and like chatting on things, that really kind of tears me up because I'm afraid I'm going to miss something. I'm afraid I'm going to mess up. Yeah. The way that I really approach speaking to crowds, and I've spoken to crowds from 500 plus to, a room of 10. I think the most interesting speaking I ever did was at a young entrepreneurs summit in Iowa, and I was on stage with Jake Paul, if any of you are familiar, the Disney guy. So we were on a panel together.
Yeah.
So he's one of my claims to fame. I didn't know, like, listen to me, I'm aging myself. I didn't know who he was before. And he's like this super famous guy for the younger generations who has like millions of followers. And, we're sitting next to each other. And at one point he was like, nobody go to college. And I was like, wait. Like, yes, I agree with the fact that not everybody needs to go to college to advance in their career, but like we're at a school right now doing this panel, and I am someone who has my MBA. Like I loved school. I was fortunate to be able to go, and I was fortunate to get some scholarships to get me through different points where it's not cheap. But I think Yeah, there's all different types of audiences I've spoken in front of. One of my tricks is when I'm nervous, I find a focal point. I forget, it was some really, it might have been like Tony Robbins or some really big motivational speaker that just said, like, find your center. So find something that distracts you from, like, you when you're about to speak and your nerves are, you're getting elevated, you're like in your head, you're going crazy. So find something that you can anchor by. So I always just kind of push my ring finger and my thumb together and kind of even like dig my nail into my hand a little bit or something to remember, like, hey, this is reality, this is okay, like, you're centered. And when you're practicing or going over your points, like, doing that too, so it helps you remember, and giving the memory a place to, like, to be at home. There's a memory specialist, Jim Quick, that I actually just watched a video on that was like, you will remember things when you give them a location. Like when you're trying to place someone's face and name, you're like, where did we meet? Where did we meet? It's the same idea for thoughts and trying to remember things. It's where did I place this? So whether it's a room in the house or something like that. And then I really focus on creating a space that I'm comfortable in that will allow the audience to be comfortable, because an audience is a lot of times as uncomfortable as you are, in the sense that, like, they're nervous, they're excited, they're trying to decide if they're going to learn something. So I immediately, whenever I speak, try to humanize myself. And so I spoke at what was the event? It was, I think, like 500 people. It was in Nebraska. It was the On Brand Marketing Summit, and I gave their end of day keynote, and it was about some of the projects we did for a former a digital agency that I was running some of their strategy and accounts at that time. And I got up there and I was just like, hi everybody. And I waited, and it's not like the call and response, like that works, but for me, like, I asked everybody to interact in an activity with me, and I laughed with them. And then I just said, hey, I'm a little, nervous to be up here. So I want you to, ask questions, like, raise your hand. I might not answer it right away, but I want this to be interactive. And that feels natural for me to create it as a conversation, to humanize the people in the audience. It's not just, this is a massive bunch of people, but to be like, oh, this is one human. This is another human. This is another human. And we're all here to learn. I have something I can share right now that I have garnered some expertise in because of my experience, but there may be people in the audience that are more expert, have a further expertise on this, that may have a question that can help everybody here learn. So the one to many and the humanizing element of it, and then grounding myself.
And those are good tips for anyone that's looking to speak to. I like that, kind of digging in and becoming back to reality, like, really bringing you down, because you could I start going off in all different places.
It's like, woo!
Yeah, and I'm going over the points in my head, and I'm like, listen, I know this. And 1 minute I'm good, and then I'm like, oh my God, what if I don't know this? No, wait a second, hold on.
And if you get it, realizing that, like, you can add to it later. Or if you mess up, take a breath and be like, whoop, totally messed that up. Hold on. I meant to say this, like.
Exactly. Bringing it back to the human side, because we're all been there. We've all been there. And it's funny too, my buddy, Josh Zolan, you know, Josh?
I don't think so. No, so you'll have to introduce me to these people. I told you I'm new. So I gotta get in with the in crowd here.
I'm gonna. So Josh Zolan, the CEO of Windy City Equipment, and we were at RIFMA together, the Restaurant Facility Maintenance Association. For those that don't know, we were out there just as this really started to hit in the beginning of March, and we both spoke. And he came off stage and he said, "I blacked out. What happened?" He said, "Was I okay?" I'm like, "You were amazing. Like, you would never know."
Did I say what I meant to? Did I make sense up there?
Yeah. And I felt the same way when I got off stage. I came off stage and I was like, "What? Did anyone know what I just said?" And then I got to watch it back, and which is always tough too, to watch yourself back.
Yeah. It's good, but also, like, don't torture yourself. Like, if you feel like you didn't do great and you don't want to see that one, have someone else watch it and give you some pointers, because I think we beat ourselves up. And even, like, in something like this, where you can do the side by side, which you probably have it so people can see for later. If you're the one that's a guest, I don't do the gallery view side by side, because then I find myself looking at myself the whole time. So if I'm just looking at you, it feels more like a conversation.
Yeah.
So, finding people that can help you, finding your little tricks, like as I said, have someone else watch it for you and be like, okay, here's a few things you can improve on, but ultimately you weren't that bad, because our self-talk and our kind of doubting, especially in digital, when you can see yourself like firsthand,
Right.
that's where a lot of people get scared. Like we were doing a couple interviews when I first went on some sales trips with the team, just to get to know the FER customers and advertisers. And I was like, oh, I'd love to interview, some people. I brought my equipment, and my equipment's like a tiny little bag with a tripod, a cell phone, a microphone. And like, I'll show you guys what I have on my computer right now, my like selfie ring light.
Oh, I like that.
Because like, I know my natural light's coming from here, but I'm like, I'm trying not to have this side of my face too shaded.
Yeah.
That's like $18 on Amazon. A
I
little
love it.
tripod. You're going to laugh at me. I have it all really close actually, but like a little tripod like this,
Oh, yeah.
set up with your phone. This one's cool because you can put it on the desk. Like it's just a couple like this. I have a little cell phone adapter there, but it also has legs that like pop out. So I had all this stuff with me, and like I can do an interview on the fly, right? And I can do
Yeah.
that. And what phones create these days is content that is much better than what we've seen in the past from some professionals, unfortunately. Professionals are expensive, and it's good to hire people when you want to create something super polished.
Yeah.
But there's the back and forth that you can use an agency that will help you create on the go content, or you can use an agency that's going to help you create really professional content, or you're trying to test it out on your own. You can test it out, especially right now. People are forgiving. So if it's your promotional video for your company, yes, you probably want to polish on it. If it's your, hey, I want to introduce XYZ people, or behind the scenes, this is how we're working from home. We did a post from FER's media channel where I asked everyone to take a picture of their at-home setup of what your desk looks like. And we just, we hadn't posted anything really personal yet on our channels. And I was like, I want to make sure that people understand that we're in this together. And that's a big hashtag that's been going around.
Yes.
And the whole team was like, do I have to participate? I'm like, I don't care if you like dress yourself up and put makeup on that day. The goal is to actually show like what real life looks like. Today, I told you I got dialed up for you guys, but it was kind of nice to have this reason to get dressed up when we're all kind of stuck inside. So finding tools that can help you on the go, but also understanding that right now people are attracted to authentic and normal. People are attracted to knowing that they're not the only one that feels like their life is a mess. Like, my background here, if I showed you my desk, it's just all papers all strewn about everywhere. And I have a construction project that I showed you that I'm working on. I just hung my hanging plants in my little office nook because I wanted some nature. And, the perfected like Instagram worthy post, but people like to see the like, oh, and here's my fail.
Yep, of course.
I
Yeah.
think,
Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say. I mean, it's so key, like to show the behind the scenes and to show the real people behind behind FER, behind my company Maliki. I love bringing people in, so you can see we're not just sometimes they see a phone number and a website, and it's kind of that could be cold, no matter how nice your website is. And again, going back to the times that we're actually in right now, what better way to say, hey, listen, we're still in business, we're a real company. We're doing real things. We have real people. Hello, here they are. They're working from home. Here's their desks. Here's what's going on. It's that, and for the companies that aren't doing it, this is your differentiator in these times.
Yeah, and you're ready to just say hello, and I think the differentiator is important. And there's ultimately, I think, collaboration and support in ways to help you stand out, but also your differentiators are your personalities. Those will always be it. Your personalities and the qualities of your product. So I'm a huge believer in collaboration over competition, and that a rising tide raises all ships. So when we talk about differentiator, like you and I could be seen as competitors, right? We both run agencies. We both do content for people. There's different pieces of that people would be like, even my team. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go in the FEDD Nation chats. Like, well, I was like, okay, hold on. This is why it's super cool. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. The more we share, like we have different qualities. What you're creating for someone will be different. The ideas we come up with. Yeah. The ways that we could even refer clients back and forth if it makes sense for our specialties. So yes, the differentiator is important, but realizing that through what you're sharing virtually, not just making it about your company, making it about the people behind it. And
Yeah.
that's where the generational gap that we've seen is advertising. When we saw Mad Men or ad days, or creating your typical ad is different. Even the print experience, I don't think print will ever go anywhere, but the experience around print is different.
Yeah.
So instead of just your traditional ads and kind of feeling like you're flipping through, it's the leisure, like it's having the time to look through a magazine is a luxury and a learning opportunity. The digital comes at us super fast. So how do we make sure that we're showing our personality, because that's where people feel engaged?
Yeah. And just going back to the point of the people aspect of it, that's the differentiator, right? The people. And I have so many conversations with people about this, you know, because we talk about service companies, and especially in your own, in all of our markets, we're competitors, we're friends and all that stuff. And that's fine. But, you know, my guys versus the 10 other companies here in New Jersey or New York, they all have the same igniters. They all have the same motors. They're all offering warranty. They're all factory authorized. What's the differentiator? The people. The people, right? When I showed Geraldine, our service manager, or Janine, or my sister Samantha, or the different techs, and you show them and you show their personalities on there, it's like, oh wow, yeah, you know, I relate to Geraldine. Geraldine's a mom. I didn't realize that, and you start to find out things about these people, and then all of a sudden, you're not doing business with Malik anymore. You want to do business with Geraldine, you know, and this is
Yeah.
how you can
You got
grow.
a guy, you got a gal.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the big importance here of the drive home to Fed Nation, ladies and gentlemen. This is not about really marketing or advertising. It's just about being genuine and authentic and humanizing ourselves to the world. Yeah.
And feeling like someone has your back. You know, I think
Yeah.
that like, who are the people behind the brand? And these brands that are in the industry are generations and hundreds of years old or tens of years old. And what are, you know, the people will change, but what are the faces behind it? I've seen some really cool stuff. We've done some digital audits for a few people. We were offering some free digital audits to help people just understand what their footprint look like, what's called your digital footprint, how people are viewing you online. And it was super cool to see some of the companies that are just doing quick videos of like all their people. Like,
Mhm.
you know, you see the faces. That's what people respond to, whether that's in advertising online or in just your general communications about your company.
Yeah, yeah. And to switch gears a little bit in times of tragedy, something that I started this conversation with Taz Taz Sutherland from Walmart, and I continued yesterday with Peter. We were talking about 9/11 came up with Taz, and we were just talking about tragedy. And we talked. Everyone knows where they were and what they were doing. So I'd love to hear your story, because nothing brings us together more than things like this as humanity. So where were you? What were you doing 9/11?
I was in high school. I went to a school in downtown Chicago, and I was actually, when it first started, I was getting on the train. So I lived on the south side and took the train every day to school. And one of the girls went in to get a coffee or a muffin from the little cafe that was at the train station. And mind you, it was like a total mom and pop. Like, it was a woman that lived on right by the tracks and had like a big room that used to probably be her living room that she had set up as like a coffee and muffin spot that everyone would kind of run through.
Nice.
And it was on the TV in there, and the girl came and like almost missed the train because she had been watching it and ran on and was like, "Hey everybody, this happened." I'm like, "What are you talking about? What is going on?" Like, we have no idea. And at that point, we all had like the little, if we had cell phones, little Nokia cell phone that accepted like 10 text messages. You could play Snake and make like 5 calls a week or something. So we couldn't look up what was going on. But then by the time we arrived at school, they had TVs in all of the kind of lunchrooms and the free periods. And where we were, we could see the Sears Tower from our school. So they actually, there's a lot of conversation of, you know, we could have been in the radius if there was a secondary attack. So it was crazy kind of thinking about all of the moving pieces. And any free period, we watched the news. Any class, you know, we started off with conversations or prayers around it because it was a Jesuit school.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. And I am from a family of first responders. So my father was the chief of safety for the City of Chicago Fire Department for a few years. At that point, he was I forget what his rank was, but running, you know, a firehouse or two, and working up with helping to work, train, and manage and run some of the fire response, and he and a bus or two load of guys went down from Chicago to New York and spent some time there. And, it was crazy because similar to what we're experiencing now with once a loved one is either in the hospital or engaging, when my dad was there, we got one phone call a day. It happened at a certain time. If he missed it, we were on pins and needles. Like, is he okay? We don't know what's happening. So it was definitely a life altering experience. And, those of us who kind of found our way to the other side of that realized what a new normal was, and we kind of took the steps, and I think it made us stronger and better, and it's unfortunate, and lives were lost, and even some of the guys that went down with my dad didn't make it back because the aftermath, like the rescue and recovery opportunities, there was still, everyone thinks about the big catastrophic like planes crashing and that piece of it, but even in cleaning it up and trying to find people and go through the rubble, there's casualties that were and are still happening to this day because of the inhalation for a lot of the rescue workers. So we're actively always monitoring, besides the years and the fires that my dad had of breathing in smoke, there's still the what they breathed in, and the people that rescued around the rescue missions afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. These things are ingrained in our minds forever. And, something like 9/11, massive tragedy. It's one of those things that changed the way, there was a new norm after that, right? It changed the way we travel. It changed the way our alertness, being around in airports. And, I think we're much more astute to what's going on around us. So there was some new normalcies and new norms there. And I think that's what's going to be with post-COVID. I think the world's going to get back to the world. I think we're going to be elbow to elbow in stadiums. We're going to be elbow to elbow in restaurants at some point in the future. But there'll be, I think there'll be that new norm of washing the hands extra, walking around with sanitizers maybe, finding that sanitization sections are in stadiums and they're all over the place. And there's going to be some new norms, I think. And but it's times like this that kind of put things in perspective. Gratitude, like you talked about, big part of what we all need to pull from this is have gratitude for our health and our well-being and our family's well-being. So
yeah, I think the craziest part is, of course we weren't prepared for 9/11. We also weren't prepared for this pandemic. And why that's so hard and why this is so different is there's a lot of waiting and there's a lot of anticipation. And this is something that is, when they say like you hit rock bottom and then like you got to climb your way back up. Well, for what we've been used to and what we've learned about with wars, with catastrophic events, it happens and then you process and rebuild. And like the next step is coming together and rebuilding. It's happening and it's happening and it's happening. And the next step is literally separating as much as possible so that we do have the opportunity to come back together to rebuild. And it's such a drawn out engagement of actively separating that is so counterintuitive to what we usually do in cases of emergency. And the world will go back to the world. The world's always going to be kind of an interactive, growing, changing. The only thing that is constant is change, they say. But what kind of comes through this is, we're anticipating how we're going to feel. We're trying to plan for, those are things that I think we have to, of course, work through from a business perspective, ideate, plan, hypothesize, but then ultimately kind of think about what you can do today, what you can work on, what you can engage with, what your company can, find, as wins here, ways to make money, what, the companies that are pivoting. And there's a dress shop in Pilsen on the south side of Chicago, a small little shop that is making face masks. There are a guy that I know sells promotional material, like, the tchotchkes that you get for events. He is now also making face masks and making hand sanitizer and selling that. There are, a friend had a 3D printer that she never really figured out how to use. She thought it was cool, thought she was going to make some stuff, use it for events. She donated it to her friend who is a healthcare worker, who then found a spec online about how to 3D print face shields, and it has now printed over 300 face shields for her colleagues and started shipping them out to other hospitals. So we're talking to manufacturers, a lot of the people here, we're talking to operators. What do you have? What can you do that you can pivot to support what's going on right now? That can be ways to create income right now. So you can't automatically be back in your factories, you can't automatically be back, but are there things that you can be doing that when you come back in, you can, be proud of what happened during this time, or work in different ways? Or are there ways that you can support others that are happening? And I think the beauty of this industry, and they always say like restaurants are recession proof. Well, this is probably the first time that restaurants are being hit the hardest and first,
Yeah.
but in the restaurant industry, but ultimately people still do need to eat. People still do need to congregate. We're not going to stop drinking. We're not going to stop, engaging and partying. It's just a matter of how do we do it responsibly, and how do we do it in a way that has touch points like it used to, but maybe some of those are rooted in a digital outreach in the beginning, and then find ways to weave in that reality or that physical outreach afterward.
Yeah. Well put. And, like you said, people are not going to stop eating and drinking. So I say to you, what is your drink of choice these quarantine days?
I've had a lot of wine, because I think that's a nice one to not overdo it. Are you going to show me your wines? Yes.
This is just basic wines because, we're not trying to break the bank. But
yeah.
I do like, I don't know, can we see that?
There we go. Yes. Cavit?
Yeah, Cavit Pinot Noir. That's not coming.
Nice.
There we go. It's a little bit better.
Yeah.
So, Cavit Pinot Noir. I've been drinking that.
I like it. I'm a big fan of Ruffino Chianti.
I like Ruffino.
Yeah, that's probably my Italian showing a little bit there.
Yep.
I'm also a big old-fashioned fan and a big bourbon whiskey drinker. So I've been slowly kind of, I have special ice cube trays that I usually have saved for special occasions, your round ice cube balls. So I'll just pour a nice, Johnny Walker actually did. So I do some work in women in diversity initiatives. Yes. And Johnny Walker was a partner and a sponsor of ours for a little bit because they launched the Jane Walker campaign. So I have a special black label Johnny Walker bottle that's Jane Walker and has the woman with the top hat. So I've been a few of those when we see some good wins. And then if I'm making a cocktail, I'm really big on a Moscow Mule or a Kentucky Mule. So either with the vodka, or the Kentucky Mule is a Moscow Mule where you put in a bourbon or a scotch or a whiskey and really kind of spice it up with the lime juice and the simple syrup and mix it up with a ginger beer that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm an old fashioned. I never was an old fashioned guy, but recently in like the last year, I'd say I started ordering them. They are very good. I think I always ask for bullet bourbon in that.
Well, it's really nice.
Makers.
Yeah, bullet or makers. Those are good, easy ones that bartenders will have. I have a few bottles that I keep for, special occasions. Like I wouldn't go out and order Johnny necessarily on a regular day.
Right.
But just, my drink of choice at events is usually a vodka soda with a lemon though. If we're talking just my regular drinks of choice, because those I think are easy sipping and I'm not going to get too crazy if I'm doing an event or at a conference. So for when we go back to them, if you don't see me with those cocktails in hand, it's because those will hit me kind of quick. So if I'm like, I'm engaging, I'm chatting with people, I don't want to be like slamming my old fashions over there.
Yeah, like one eye open, hey.
Yeah.
No, but I'm a kettle club lime kind of guy when I go out to events as well. Just something to hold. So yeah. I would say at this point, I'd love to get some last encouraging words for Fed Nation. So anything that you have, maybe from the heart, you want to just input to the Fed group to let them know everything's going to be all right.
Yeah, I think it's important to focus on the gratitude, focus on that today is real life and not plan for a future that is unknown. To understand that there are things you can be doing right now to either rebuild, re-engage, work with different companies, whether it's from a personal standpoint or your company or your restaurant. Be prepared to think outside the box, schedule yourself some innovative hours where you just maybe it's when you're sipping on your old fashioned and just be like, okay, I've taken in all this content, I've taken in all this knowledge, I've worried as much as I can. What can I be doing now? And be grateful for the things you can be grateful for. Plan for the things that you know, and don't get stuck in the cycle of worry and the unknown, because that's going to continue to put you in a spot where you don't understand. So those are my kind of parting personal thoughts. And from a digital perspective, now's the time that you have the ability to try things on, to test things out. And what you might have been nervous about, or what people might have kind of held your feet to the fire, given you a hard time about before, if you failed, the world is a much more forgiving place for people trying. The world is a much more forgiving place for, putting yourself out there online right now. So, you feel free to reach out to me directly. Feel free to, I'm going to put you in there too. Reach out to Rich if you need some tips. Feel free to reach out to either of us, talk in this group, communicate with, if you have an agency or a marketing team, there's people you can lean on if you're curious or concerned about what you might do. But this is the time that you get to, play dress up, I guess you could say.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think that's a great way to end this. Don't let yourself be crippled by fear of the unknown, right? Like you said, and put yourself out there. The people are very open and accepting in this industry. And that's one of the things I've always loved about it. So I appreciate all your time. And we're going to have to do this again, because this was fun.
Oh, absolutely.
This was a fun one. This flowed. I liked it.
Well, it's probably because we've both been engaged in panels. We've both been speakers before.
Yeah.
And, both of our jobs have something to do with digital, so that helps. It's a little easier. But I think to that point, it doesn't have to be hard for anyone. Find your wins, find your tools that support you. And heck yes, I'm in for another one. I'm in to continue to be a part of the Fed Nation community. And thank you for your time. And thank you for putting this and these chats together, and for the efforts and time that you're putting in, because I think it's important for people to see that we are in this together, and that there's a future, but we don't have to worry about, 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now. We need to worry about, what's in front of us, and what we can work on, and what we can build, and then continue to work on that as more information comes our way, and focus on the positive where we can.
Yeah. And that's where we'll end it. Focus on the positive, ladies and gentlemen. Fed Nation, I appreciate you joining us on another Fed Chat, episode 7 with Michael Donnelly. We will see you guys on the next one. Have a beautiful day, and be kind to each other.